everyone, I'm Krista Seiden.
And I'm Lewis Gray.
Welcome to our first episode of Measure Matters. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at our agenda. Today we're going to cover a few things. First, we're going to talk about what is Measure Matters. What is this new series that we're doing? Then we're going to talk about what's new in analytics, what's the word on the street in terms of industry news and notes. Then our big question for today, which today is machine learning taking over our jobs? And finally, we will finish with question and answer. So there is a Q&A box or a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen for the YouTube broadcast. Feel free to drop your questions in there at any time during the broadcast. We're going to be watching this as they come in and try to answer them at the end. You can also reach us on social at #measurematters for Q&A as well, and we'll be monitoring there too.
Absolutely. So just to kick this off, what is Measure Matters? You know, Krista and I, we get to go out and speak to so many different people who are practitioners of Google Analytics and our many different products, from Optimize to Surveys to Google Tag Manager. But I realize we aren't able to speak to those of you who aren't particularly at those events. So what we try to do is get a real handle on all the new information that's happening from the Google Analytics suite and bring to you the best of what we're seeing on social. I get the great opportunity to really kind of take a look at all those channels regularly and see what our analysts are saying, what our partners are saying, and we wanted to bring that directly to you. And we also wanted this to be a two-way conversation. So it's not just us broadcasting to you, but you can bring your voice and really ask us those questions throughout the week, honestly, and we'll come back to these.
That's right. It is live and unfiltered, so do feel free to chime in with those questions.
And we are planning on holding these pretty much every 2 weeks. We're going to try and keep really close to that. In fact, our next one is already scheduled 3 weeks away, and we'll give you a quick preview on that just at the end of this broadcast. So why don't we go ahead and talk about what's happening in the world of Google Analytics?
Yep, so what's new in product today? Well, since this is our first episode, there is a lot that has been new in the last couple of months, so we're just going to give you a couple of the quick highlights.
And the first one I want to touch on actually was very popular when we launched this. This is called conversion probability. This is one of those fun launches where we're about to release it to 100% and people are already talking about it because they can see it get out there. And really this is just trying to find out which of your visitors to your website are most likely to convert for an e-commerce transaction. And what's great about this is we're talking about machine learning today. We use machine learning with this conversion probability to determine what kind of users have made decisions and transactions in the past that will lead your website to revenue. And so you can go into the audience behavior section of Google Analytics today and you will see a brand new report called conversion probability. We have a quick screenshot up on the slide to give you a preview of what that looks like. But this will give you a quick drill down on what type of users are going to convert and get you that revenue you need. And the second one, this was actually our most popular share from the last month's social channel activity, is a brand new data set for BigQuery. And for those of you who aren't too familiar with BigQuery, think of it as a really smart analytics tool that's able to crunch a bunch of data very quickly. And so what we wanted to do is enable all those folks who do use BigQuery to tap into the smarts of Google Analytics. It leverages our Google Merchandise Store. This is part of our demo program that I know Dee and I have talked a lot about. And it pulls out information so you can see just exactly which products are flying off the shelves, how many SKUs you might have, what the revenue looks like per product. Really any type of deep query that you can run can be pulled out of this brand new data set. So I talked to Dee a lot about this, and what he told me is that this is something that's not just for end user practitioners who want to get that first touch of BigQuery and have a new data set to play with, but it's for educators, kind of like ourselves, who are in these universities teaching people about analytics and measurement for the first time. And so they can tap into this brand new data set in BigQuery and query now.
I think this is one of the most requested things that I've heard on the road in the past couple of years is when will we have a sample data set available in BigQuery. So I'm super excited about this launch, that this is now available to play with and so that more people can dig in and actually learn how to use BigQuery.
Absolutely.
So the next new exciting thing that we have for you is the new Analytics 360 Academy course. So we have the Analytics Academy. It's our online learning system where we have a lot of video content as well as educational lessons to learn all about analytics as well as Google Tag Manager. We released a couple of new courses last year, Google Analytics for Beginners and Advanced Google Analytics. And just the other month, maybe a month ago, we launched the Getting Started with Google Analytics 360 course, which is now a new course all about the 360 features of Google Analytics, including integrations out to all of the different DoubleClick products in BigQuery. So we're super excited about this. We hope that you go ahead, head over to the Analytics Academy, check it out, and earn a certificate of completion there.
And I understand you're in this.
I am in this. You can watch me a whole lot more on screen if you'd like to go tune into the Analytics 360 course.
And your teammate on that is Ashish. So,
Yep.
I've taken a look at a number of these courses, and I think there's always more for me to learn, even getting to be here. So it's always good to tap in and see the kind of work that you're doing with Ashish and Justin and the different videos that are there to get us up to speed.
Yep.
And how much does it cost?
It is free.
That's the right price.
That is. All right. Moving on. Google Optimize is now even better. So this is really, really exciting because over the past 2 years since launching Optimize, or the last year since launching the free version, we've heard a lot of feedback that 3 concurrent tests in the free version is not enough. And so we've actually raised that limit now to 5 concurrent tests. So you can run 5 tests in Optimize at a time for every account and container. We also released a new Getting Started with Google Optimize video series. You can see a YouTube link down at the bottom, krista.me/startoptimize. This is a 4-part video series. It takes you from how to set up an account to starting your first test to actually building out a variant and analyzing those results. And it takes maybe 15 minutes to watch all of these videos. And if you do so, I think you're gonna have a really great overview of how you can actually get started and start running your first test with Optimize.
And it sounds little, but we're talking up here fast. And I think one thing about YouTube is you have that ability to pause and go back. And so I know a lot of people who do these self-help courses, whether it's Academy or it's YouTube, they can pause and they can edit the content on their website and then continue. So it really is kind of self-pacing.
Totally. Or you can speed it up and watch me at 2x the speed, really babble on your screen. The last thing we have for Optimize is installation diagnostics. This is something that we just released, and it is a feature that lets us check if Optimize is actually set up correctly on your website. So we can tell you before you go ahead and launch that test if the code is in place and working properly, if your analytics code is up to date, and hopefully if that test will then run correctly on your site. So we have a couple of updates for Google Tag Manager as well. One thing that we've just released is Tag Manager Container Zones. So these are more granular control over access to various parts of your website. What does that mean? Well, for example, you could give your marketing team and agencies publish access to their own containers in Google Tag Manager, but you can actually restrict that access down to just certain pages, like the marketing pages, if you don't want those teams to have access to other parts of your site and be able to publish tags, triggers, or variables for other things on your website. This is really, really powerful when it comes to disseminating out the ability to implement and publish across many teams, but also to keep centralized control when it comes to who should be having access to what. So the last thing that we have for Google Tag Manager is type restrictions. And this is coming out in that same launch, and this allows you to control access to specific tag, trigger, or variable types in terms of who can access what tags. So similar to zones, you can say that your marketing teams can have access to all of the different ad pixels, DoubleClick AdWords, but not the analytics tags or triggers. So again, more granular control to really help you disseminate out the ability to implement across your organizations while managing that centrally.
So one thing I want to do real quick here is a plug for our blog and our social channels. Each of these updates that we just ran through, we announce on our blog or on our Twitter or our Google Plus and LinkedIn, and make sure those go out. So if you go to analytics.googleblog.com, you'll see a lot more about Tag Manager. I remember this was one of those posts where we literally had one of those A to Z headlines, from arrays to zones or whatever else we have. And there's just a lot going on. And so we only have a couple of minutes to go through GTM right now, but if you're a GTM junkie and you want to get all those other letters we didn't go through, definitely check out the blog post.
Yep, great plug there. And with that, why don't we turn to the word on the street? So Lewis, why don't you take us through some of the most interesting things that you've seen on social recently?
Absolutely. And so one thing that's really fun about social is we have such an engaged community, and I'm talking directly to them right now, is that you guys are really plugging into GA and our entire suite and finding new ways to use our product. You're finding better how-to tips, and we're helping other people share those and have them understand the best way to go about the product. So if we jump to that next slide, one of the interesting things that we talk a lot about here at Google is performance. And when it comes to performance on your website, there really is almost no better probability of a single factor having an impact on whether or not a user converts. And so our friends over at the Google developers team ran a query and found that website performance directly impacts engagement and retention. It means that users have a fast loading site, they're going to take action on it, they're going to stay longer, they're going to make more activities. And they have a number of case studies that show like a 100 millisecond decrease in the loading of a page can result in an increase of 1 to 3% in their ability to convert and get revenue.
It's huge.
And so we have a quick link here, so you can check that out. If you've ever run into our work with accelerated mobile pages, or you have concerns about how quickly your site launches on mobile phones and tablets, which are becoming increasingly important as mobile has overtaken desktop for total traffic on the web, you can't overlook this. So definitely take a look at and talk about website performance. In a less serious note, but still fun, our friends at Lunametrics had a Take Your Child to Work Day very recently. I think it was a couple weeks ago. And what did they do? Like any good geeks, they set their kids up with a Google optimized course, and they let them run wild on their website. And I thought it was real fun to see booger metrics up at the top left. I encouraged them to try and hold that up for a 24-hour A/B test. Who knows? It could have converted even better than their current site. But at least for now, it was a lot of fun. And they had some really smart comments about how kids really had an easy time with this optimized product. They said it was so easy they could use it, and they don't hate the new look, and honestly, we don't either. Anytime you have a neon cat and a rainbow, I think you're good to go. So that was kind of fun. And then Adam Singer, our colleague, did a quick post on ClickZ. He does a post there regularly. This is focusing on digital efforts. A lot of folks are out there trying to become digital influencers, whether that's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever they're going to be. But they haven't thought about how that revenue is going to come in. What are the metrics that make sense for you? And how do you do this in a platform agnostic way? Because those social platforms are continually changing. What might have worked 3 months ago might not work today. And what about those posts you made 2 years ago if something changes on the back end? So I really appreciated his post on this, really taking a smart look at it and saying what makes sense in terms of measurement here.
Yep. Wow. Okay. That was a ton of updates that we just threw at our users over the last 10 or 15 minutes. And we did go through it rather quickly. So just a reminder, this recording will be available. It's at the same link that you're watching it now. After the fact, if you want, you can slow us down to half speed and really catch up with everything that we said, because I know we talked fast, but we have so much great content that we wanted to cover. So we had to try to get it all in.
We're going to talk about machines now?
We are going to talk about machines now. So the big question, are machines taking our jobs? Now, this is a question that I have heard debated over and over in the industry. Every conference I go to, you hear more and more about machine learning and artificial intelligence and big data and data scientist teams and all of these things taking traditional jobs that us as web analysts may have had, or marketing analysts. And so I guess, the question is, are we going to be losing out in the future? Are we going to have a job in 5 years from now?
I think we'll adjust.
So, Louis, what's your take on this? Do you think that machines are taking over? Is there some kind of a happy balance that we can find?
I had this direct question asked to me when I was at Haas Business School recently, and I have to say, go Bears. I think we're both Berkeley alums. And they had an interesting question, say, why do we even need analytics advocates anymore? And it was a very decent question, and my answer was that analytics is not as widespread in the industry as we might think, and you can always get better. Yep. And I think the same thing comes to this approach with machine learning. Krista's going to go deep and talk about what we're doing today on GA with some smart intelligence. But the reality is, what machines are supposed to be doing is taking away that repetitive work that so long we've just done and accepted that it was the right way to do it, and it shouldn't be. Yeah. And so if they can take away a lot of that repetitive work, we can get to more creative elements. We can take on more clients. We can do things more quickly. We can take better cuts and make new reports and have new data studio dashboards. Mm-hmm. And so I absolutely don't think machines are going to take those jobs away, but what they are going to do is let you focus on those things that are most important, most impactful.
Totally. I mean, this is something that I think as analysts we've talked about for a very long time. How can we free up more of our time from the data cleaning and the data ingestion and all of the dirty data work that we don't want to do, so that we can do more of that really interesting, really deep level analysis and reporting and really up-leveling all of this information across all of our businesses. So I think it's a really great segue into kind of what we are looking at as a team here and some of our early thoughts. And I want to stress, this is early. We have a long way to go when it comes to intelligent learning and intelligent analytics. in the industry, but we are starting to do some really cool things with data on our end, and we want to share some of that with you.
And I think some of this already goes back to the way that people are changing the way they interact with computers in general.
Yep.
5 years ago, if you told me that I could ask a question to this little box sitting on my table and it would answer me back in real time, I would have paid a lot of money for it and wonder where it was coming from. And now we all have those, be they Google Homes or the Alexa or any of these devices that are answering questions naturally. And I have kids, and they talk to the devices pretty much as they talk to me, which is good. And they also start earlier in the day, and their first question every day is asking Google, what's the weather? So they know what to wear when they're getting dressed. And I think when we take a look at analytics, it only makes sense that we take the same type of natural language query and ask real questions of our data. So we're not just throwing reports out that look like tables and rows, but have real answers.
Totally. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the slide deck once again and look at some of the things that we are doing for analytics intelligence. So as an organization, we have a vision for analytics intelligence. We want to use machine learning to help our customers understand and act on their data. And we're looking at this in 3 ways. So the first is that we want to surface actionable insights. We want to be able to alert you and tell you when something is wrong or something is right, and help you take action on that information. If you've just launched a campaign and it's tanking your revenue, you should know right away so that you can turn that off or make some adjustments. Or vice versa, if something is going really, really well, maybe you want to up your efforts there. Next is that we want to democratize data. We really want data to be available throughout the organization. So as an analyst, as a practitioner, I spent many, many years actually running analytics and optimization teams internally at companies, including here at Google. And one of the biggest, wastes of time that I would often encounter is the simple questions. People repetitively asking me, how many people came to our site last month? Can you pull data on our top traffic channels for last month? And I would continually ask them, is this a one-off request? Are we going to be able to automate this? And I think we are trying to take that a step farther and reduce the need for these types of questions to an analyst. If we can just teach our users or our companies how to ask these questions themselves, they can get the answers themselves. And that's really where a lot of the question and answer type response that Lewis was just talking about is going to come into play. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that later. And then finally, we have detecting and predicting user behavior. And this is where the machines are coming in. This is where we're getting a little bit of the ML and the AI and really applying the Google knowledge and the Google brain of tools that we have here to analytics data to make a lot of this information available to you intelligently and quickly.
And I think a good example of that was conversion probability that we talked about up front.
Totally.
And we talked a little bit about machine learning, and one thing I always want to talk about is just this optimization and the ability to avoid the repetitive tasks. One thing we look at is we know, taking a step deeper, we know that some of our most heavily trafficked times on Google Analytics are actually like Sunday nights. And the reason is because people like us have been trying to run these weekly reports, and we want to get them out for Monday staff meetings. And if we can get a way for this to be automated, for like in Data Studio, if you set up a report and that URL does never change, that's smart. And instead of having to come in every Sunday night and run this report and export it to Excel and send it as an email attachment, which many of us have done for years,
oh yeah,
you can
I've
just
been that analyst.
point to that URL and say, that's it, this doesn't change, and actually lets the people who are looking at it make their own queries.
And have the data in real time whenever they need it.
Absolutely.
All right, so I do want to point out that this is not necessarily new at Google. We have a long list of technology and other teams at Google who are already applying machine learning, AI, intelligence to what they're doing. And we have world-class products that are already using these tools. We are all using the machine learning and advanced technology that Google has, TensorFlow, DeepMind, Google Brain. So the point of this slide is really just to tell you that we're not starting from scratch here. We have some very, very smart people that are taking and applying some very, very smart technology that's already been developed and adapting that for an analytics mindset. So a quick insight into analytics intelligence insights. So here we are looking at a screenshot of insights on a mobile device. So we do have a mobile app for Google Analytics. And in that mobile app, you can access analytics intelligence and insights. Some of the things that you might see are top landing pages that are underperforming and improvement opportunities, important pages that might be loading too slowly, and we would suggest some diagnostic tools and speed suggestions, And finally, we might point out some high-performing keywords, landing pages, or products that are missing from your media campaigns and suggest that you consider adding them or subtracting them if they are actually detracting from your overall business efforts.
In this case, I always say let the machines do the work. One thing about the mobile app, it is available on Android and iOS. If you're somebody who looks at analytics regularly and you don't have it on your phone, now's a good time. Because the phone is going to basically give you direct access to your device and direct access to your data wherever you are. And it's going to do a lot of that digging that you might not be able to look for and find it right away. And I've seen it find really interesting things to me. It'll tell me, I've had a 40% uplift in the number of pages viewed in a certain day from a specific geography, or a specific referral is driving a lot of traffic. And so it's really interesting to kind of find that automatically, where previously I would have had to look to a report and gone in and manually checked it when it'll just tell me right away.
Yep, totally. So a common customer concern: what are the statistically significant changes in the metrics and dimension slices that I care about? So we've recently launched Anomaly Detection Insights for key metrics and dimension slices. Now you might be saying, well, Krista, you've had anomaly detection and alerts in Google Analytics for quite some time. Right, Lewis?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
But it wasn't that good. We did, not the best job at really pointing out what was going on and really giving you an idea of what was causing that. So this is an all new take on this, and I want to actually walk you through how it works. So let's look at an example anomaly. In this case, we're looking at an anomaly in daily revenue for women's sneakers. So step one of this is that we're going to get the last 90 days of actual data if it's a daily anomaly, or the last 32 weeks of data if it is a weekly anomaly. That way we have a good baseline, a solid baseline of data to be able to predict and forecast from. Then we're going to use time series forecasting to predict the forecasted value of the current day. We'll do a significance test on the forecasted value versus the actual value to determine if that is inside or outside of those bounds. And then finally, if the actual value is outside of our forecasted value bounds, then we are going to classify this as an anomaly. And if we do classify it as an anomaly, we are going to try to give you a reason why. So in this case, the drop was likely due to new sneaker creative that we've just launched. So we might want to consider taking down that campaign, switching it out for the previous content that we had that was working much better, or some other decision that we should make together with our marketing and ads teams to really improve this anomaly and get back onto our forecasted value range.
And this kind of reminds me of one thing that I talk about a lot is where in the design flow do you think about measurement? And I think one of the issues I run into a lot when working with marketing and branding agencies is that they get really caught up in the creative. They love the way it looks. They launch the campaign and then say, wait, how are we measuring whether it's successful or not? Yep. And so in the case that you're using about specific revenue, obviously revenue is one of those you almost can't miss, that it's an important KPI to get done right. But when you are doing a campaign, you have to understand, do we set up the criteria for success at the very beginning of the campaign, after it's already launched, or at the very end? And if you get together with your team and understand exactly what KPIs make sense to you, when you see an anomaly like the one that Krista's pointing out, you might say, wow, this is exactly what we should not be doing, and I need to go back to use the old creative. This also goes back to optimize and the fact that you can use each of these different types of website conversions to find out exactly how your site is performing and which one's working the best. Yep. And so if you use optimize in combination with this type of anomaly detection, it really is a game changer.
It's super powerful, and I look forward to digging in on that one in a future episode. I'm going to quickly give you very quick overview of analytics intelligence in the analytics UI. So let me jump on over to that. So here we are looking at the Google Analytics merchandise store. And this is the home screen. This is what we see when we log into Google Analytics. Now, in this report and in most reports across Google Analytics, in the upper right-hand corner, there is going to be this button called Intelligence. Now, if we click that, we're going to get a little slide-out bar. And this is where we can ask and answer a question. So back to that point number 2 about democratizing data and really giving the power to our users. I want to know, my most common question about how many users we got on our site last month. So I'm going to go ahead and type how many people came last month. Now, really important distinction there. I wanted to know how many users were on my website in the month of April. But what I asked was how many people came last month, because that's probably what people in my organization are going to ask. So this is where natural language processing is really coming in and showing you the power of some of the things that we are putting into this tool to really make this very usable across your organizations and to democratize data. So we got users 67,000 in the last month. But what if I want to know if that has changed from the previous month or week? Did we go up or down? So I'm going to say, how did users change? I didn't specify week or month, so it's going to default to week here. And it's going to show me week over week growth. And in this case, our users have gone down by 4.36% in the last week. Again, how did users change is not the actual taxonomy of what we would use to find that answer in Google Analytics, but it is the type of language that users would use. It also shows you some of that next generation thinking in terms of the how. So it's really easy to answer questions of what, but how is really that next layer of information. And we're going to give you a link to go to a full report to view more of this. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, this is just the start. We are really looking to build on this and expand it across everything that we're doing in analytics to really bring this intelligence to our data sets and to our organizations.
And what I like about this is, in this case, you're teaching the machines how to think and speak like humans. For decades, we've been teaching humans how to speak and talk like computers, right? Mm-hmm. And it used to be super arcane. You'd have to do specific command sets and like writing into a command line. That was just expected of you. But now we're at the point where computers are understanding simple queries like, is that more than yesterday? And they understand what to do. And so that's really interesting to see. And we're getting more used to this, as we have a new generation of people who are used to speaking in natural language query, using things like touch screens, and they have a more direct connection with the device instead of the computer having to train us.
Yep. So I think this is a really good overview of a lot of what we are doing in terms of machine learning and intelligence in Google Analytics. Now, I want to go to a quick summary. Before I do, I just want to say after that, we're going to take your Q&A. So if you haven't gotten any questions into the chat box or on Twitter at #measurematters yet, please go ahead and get those in, and Lewis and I will do our best to answer them right after this. So in summary, we have talked about a lot today. But I just wanted to leave you with a couple of high-level bullet points. You can connect with Measure Matters on Twitter at #measurematters. You can follow Google Analytics on pretty much any social channel. And I'm at Krista Seiden,
I'm Lewis Gray.
And we did want to mention again that our next episode is going to be May 23rd, and we're going to talk about measurement for growth. And we're going to try to cadence them every 2 weeks after that, so stay tuned for our full agenda because we're really excited about this series and about interacting with our customers directly. Also, the YouTube recording of this will be available right after this at the same link in case you missed it or want to share this episode out with your friends. And with that,
we do have a couple of questions that have come in through YouTube.
Excellent.
And the good news is I think these are ones that are simple to answer.
Perfect.
And the first of which is, where do we find all of these Academy courses? Somebody was wanting to know more about demo, for example. So how do they get started?
They will go to, well, the URL just changed. It used to be analyticsacademy.google.com.
Right. So it's analytics.google.com/analytics/academy.
There you
and
go.
So there you can find any of the different courses, which we walked through earlier in this broadcast, including the Analytics 360 course, which just dropped about a month ago. We also had another question speaking about anomaly detection. Somebody asked, is there a support page for this? And so I did a quick query on this, as one does, and found absolutely we do. If you check our help center, we have some details around anomaly detection insights, as Krista spoke about. And like she mentioned, it's a statistical technique to identify outliers and time series data for a given dimension, value, or metric. And if I sound smart, it's just because I can read. So that's in the help center. And one thing that's really interesting about our team in education is it's more than just those of us who are up on stage talking to you. It's the many people who constantly are writing and producing content on the back end to answer all of those queries that you have. We have a really strong technical writing team that does fill out the Help Center daily. So I'm going to go ahead, for those of you who are on YouTube, I'm going to type those URLs into the chat so you don't miss that, and we'll make sure that you have it. Any other thoughts about robots coming to take our jobs?
I think we're okay for now. I do think we need to augment our thinking here a bit and look at more of the value that we can bring to businesses in terms of distilling all of that information out to these high-level insights and communicating across the businesses. But I think TLDR is we still have jobs.
Now, one other person wants to know, speaking of jobs and work that we can do in the future, are we ever going to make custom alerts better?
I hope so.
This is one of those things where we're constantly working on things. And one thing that's a lot of fun for me when I run the social channels is seeing direct feedback. You guys are really our canary in the coal mine when things are not working. And so we'll find out sometimes if there's an issue with the site, we'll go ahead and file a bug real quick and get that changed. Or if you have specific feature requests, we do listen and we escalate those to the team. Krista and I are right next to all the product managers and the engineers, and we try and get those done. So anything you don't like about analytics, let us know. We do listen, we do care, and we want to make that better. And so, Krista, it's been a delight to kick off Measure Matters with you. I understand there's a reason we're not doing this 2 weeks from now. What's going on?
I'm getting married, so we're going to have a brief pause in our filming schedule, but we'll be back after that.
And we did talk about this. We're only allowing this to happen one time. So get that big life event out of the way, and we'll get back to recording and broadcasting directly to all of you at Measure Matters.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.